Zach with Wingard Wearables. You're one of 12 special people who's going to watch this video to the end. And today's video is about a recap of our experience at Blade Show Atlanta and a brief mid-year update for Wingard Wearables. Now, we've done several tabletop shows over the years. This is our second time to go to Blade Show Atlanta. Our first year there was last year. They had us, whenever you apply as an exhibitor at Blade Show, they'll put you in a smaller room. There are two big rooms at Blade Show. One is an enormous room, the main exhibit hall, and then the other is much smaller than that, but still an enormous room. It's basically the size of a ballroom, and they call it the baller room. So we were there for the first time at Blade last year. This year we got in the main exhibit hall, and we wanted to stand out. So we brought our 8-foot tall polystyrene Empress sculpture and lined it with lights. And when you walked into the room, it looked like $1,000,000. This is an enormous room, all kinds of banners and signs. You've got 1,000 exhibitors total at Blade Show. And ours was the only illuminated sign, and it stood out big time. It just looked incredible. Other than that, we also created a vertical display. Contrast is king. So we took our stainless steel tools, our quills, and our dick picks and attached them to black Kydex as sort of an eye level attention getter as you're walking through this room full of tables to see our interesting, unique designs. Other than that, our tabletop display was similar to last year. We did sell out of thumpers and micropikes, so we had fewer products this year, but the tabletop display on the flat side, on the horizontal display, was very similar to last year. And so, compared to last year, we were in the smaller room with a less grand display. Then this year, you compare that, we're in the main exhibit hall, and we have this magnificent glowing display. So how do you think we did compared to last year? Well, it turned out we did about the same in terms of sales. And Blade Show isn't entirely about sales at all, but foot traffic seemed to be down compared to last year. And so I'm thankful that we did as well as we did last year. We heard from folks who had attended Blade shows in previous years, and they talked about how annoying it was in these previous years, like not being able to find parking and getting into the main exhibit hall, and there's just a wall of people, like lines. So you had to kind of shuffle around to see what was on each table. Compared to this year, hey, they were able to easily find parking and walk through the show and easily scan to see what was on the tables. So that's great if you were an attendee at Blade Show this year. But as an exhibitor, lower foot traffic and lower attendance is never a good thing. So it does seem like it was a down year for Blade Show. And we were talking with other exhibitors. Some of the small makers had a terrible show. We talked to a few who sold 1 to none over 3 days of the show. And I've kind of been there. I know what that's like. Back in 2018 when Wingard Wearables first started, I did 3 tabletop shows and had 1 sale for all of them. That was before Wingard Wearables really existed on anyone's consciousness, right? So we had 0 brand awareness. I know what it's like to sit at that table and have no one come up to you interested in your items or buying anything. It stinks, but it especially stinks when you're talking about a show as expensive as Blade Show. Blade Show is, if you've never exhibited at Blade Show, you're talking a single table costs $600 and up. They charge $200 to use their Wi-Fi. What was it, $600 for electricity if we wanted to use that? Yeah, so we had to illuminate our giant Empress sculpture. So instead of paying them $600, we shelled out $300 for one of those portable power packs, which is, of course, something we're going to be using for years. But yeah, it's a pricey show. It's not like your standard local gun and knife shows where you're paying $90 per a table and you can just commute to the show and then head back home at the end of the day. It's a pricey show even before factoring in travel logistics. One of the knife makers, he made just these incredible grinds. He had crisp knives and also these very fierce looking toothed blades. It was just incredible. He was telling me just how dangerous it was to make these knives. And he came from South America. And he had a terrible show. And so you feel it in your heart for these other makers that are just like pouring out their talent and time and precious funds for that, just not to get any traction. And the fact is, it's 1,000 exhibitors in an enormous room. It is very difficult to get people to even glance downward at you, at your table, at what you're making. We know because we had a giant glowing Empress Tomahawk over our table, and there were still quite a few people that never made it over to us. So there's just, it's better to do tabletop shows when you have, some level of brand awareness. I'm going to give you guys a heads up that we have a cat on the table. I foolishly, this is a hot sauce. Let me grab him. Oh! Usually we lock these guys up so they aren't bad during filming, but they've missed us a lot lately because we've been on the road. We let them in for filming, but they're being quite bad. One of them's pitching a fit off the screen, and this one was crawling up on the table. All right, go away. It's a tough slog if no one knows about you, your brand, what you do, and you're sitting at that table and just hoping strangers coming by will suddenly see the brilliance of your work and be interested in it, and you'll get a sale. That is really rough road to hoe. It's always better when you have an established brand with greater and greater brand awareness. And speaking of that, we're very thankful for anyone who came by our table. We got a lot. It was very cool to see people that followed us finally get an opportunity to handle our products, or people that came up to us who had bought a product and use it daily. That's always great to hear from our customers and interact with them. But we also were at Blade talking to not only other small makers, but established makers. And, one of the established makers talking with us, they happen to have a good show at Blade Show. But they did tell us that the industry as a whole, the knife industry, was down by over 20% the whole year. And we're seeing that too. It's actually hitting small makers a lot harder. So, all in all, for us, Blade Show isn't about the tabletop sales, but that's something that you can't ignore. Right, so it was a down year for a lot of people. Fortunately for us, we did about as well as last year. But the majority of our sales are off of website sales. So going out to Blade Show, it's just an opportunity to interact with people. You have like customers that have wanted to see a new product they haven't been able to handle yet. You've got people who've never heard of you, and now you're on their radar, and later they become a customer. And interacting with other small makers, established makers, dealers. Those are all critical. That's why we're at Blade Show. That part of Blade Show, meeting the people was really successful for us. It was also exhausting. We drove all the way down from Pennsylvania down to Georgia, on the road for a few days. On the way back, some food poisoning, not fun, really bad hotel room. Anyway, we got back. I somehow didn't lose my voice. We are already signed up for Blade Show 2026 in Atlanta. And if Blade Show Atlanta is too far away, in September, late September, we've applied for the Lehigh Valley Knife Show in Easton, PA. And then in mid-October, there's Blade West in Salt Lake City. So if you're interested in handling a Wingard Wearables product, or you want to meet us, come out to Lehigh Valley in late September, or Salt Lake City, Utah for Blade West. Now, it doesn't help like the what we've noticed like with the drop in sales across the industry. This really kicked off starting in sort of gets into our mid-year update for Wingard Wearables. And to do the mid-year update, we go all the way back to last October. That's when we first noticed a drop in sales. And we've heard from other small makers experiencing the same thing. And we also track news from the blade industry and from other industries like the firearms industry, that sort of thing. there's been overall, across many businesses, they've observed a pullback in discretionary spending. And of course, it doesn't help our drop-in sales if we aren't posting a lot. We're doing long-form YouTube videos. We haven't done a long-form YouTube video since early October. So we're going to get back into long-form video content. We're halfway through 2025. We will have more videos coming out. We're going to pick up with the Featherlight Tomahawk tests along with our zombie target surrogate tests. And we're going to have some more historic content and prototypes to show off. In fact, we will show off one of those soon. Now, speaking of new things, speaking of new things, when sales are slow, that just means you have more time to come up with and refine new designs. And so one of the tools that we've recently acquired to help that is that we finally acquired a 3D printer to accelerate our pace of prototyping. Right now we're focusing on a few small products, very light, small fixed blades that are easy to carry, and we have a big product in the work as well. Big, like about that big. Now, here is one that will be ready in the near future. It's this. Yeah, what is this, you might ask? It is an oyster knife that you can wear on your person. So this has what we call a clip grip. So you see this clip here, that shape clips to your pocket or inside the waistband or to your clothing. And it's also an ergonomic grip for a variety of grip orientations when you're gripping this tool for various tasks. Now, an oyster knife is kind of like a letter opener. It also could be a point-driven tool, and it's an oyster knife, right? You can use it to pry and twist open shellfish. But yeah, so we're working on the oyster knife. It's taken a lot of work. It's deceptively simple looking, but that clip required making dies and acquiring new equipment so that this could be cold formed into a consistent clip geometry. And it's going to be further refined. This prototype got in our hands just this week, but we've already got a new 3D print out of plastic to refine the design. We're going to add a long ricasso section here so you can pinch up to it when you're shoving this into a shellfish for twisting it open. So yeah, like we're just seeing that, you know, interaction between 3D printing plastic prototypes and actually making the metal prototypes, just really tightening up the prototyping design. But that points to another benefit of Blade Show. Like there are some people that came up to our table who are like knife review equipment, tool testers, that sort of thing, or other makers. So we're able to hand them plastic prototypes in hand of concepts and get their feedback. So that was really valuable too. So anyways, Wingard Wearables, we are focused on the future. I'm going to have to repeat that because one of the cats just galloped out of here while ruffling a bunch of papers. We are focused on the future, and the future is positively pointy, right? So yeah, you guys, you're one of the 12 special people who stuck to it to the end. Share it with a friend so that 13 will have watched it. And remember to be edgy.